Welcome to the Abel Speaks podcast, where we speak to commonly asked questions by parents who have received a life-limiting diagnosis for their child. We're Daniel and Kelly Crawford, and we're glad that you've joined us. Okay, welcome back to the Abel Speaks podcast. Today's question, we're talking mode of delivery. So Kelly, what should a parent start to process as they are thinking through the mode of delivery?
So I would say that there are 4 options that we have. And so the first would be to just let our body go into labor naturally and have the baby. The second option would be to choose an induction and choose an induction date and have the baby that way. A third option would be to choose to induce, but also be open to the option of a C-section if the baby's health was declining during the induction process. And then the fourth option would just be to schedule a C-section and have the baby that way.
Okay, yeah. So that's a good place to start, is what are even the categories that I should think through. And so there's pros and cons of every option, like all things. But as we look back to, as different parents land in different places and choose different routes that are right for their family, all we can do is share from our story and our experience. And so would you want to walk through just kind of how we approached this topic in this decision?
Yeah, so we really tried to hold the decision loosely, and we tried to educate ourselves on what the options were, what the pros and cons of each option would be, and then we just tried to monitor Abel. And so throughout the pregnancy, and specifically as we got closer to his due date, we were monitoring how he was doing, what were the specific abnormalities or issues that he was dealing with, and make the best decision for him. And so as we were processing all of those things and all of our options, we landed probably around 36 weeks. We had decided to schedule a C-section. Abel had a severe heart condition that we were concerned he might not survive labor. And so because of that, we felt like that was the best decision for him and for our family. And it ended up being a great experience for us. And we felt a lot of peace about that around the 36-week marker. And so for some families, they feel peace about that a little earlier, some a little later. And what we often just say is just to be prayerful about that decision and to seek wise counsel and just trust that the Lord will give you peace about that in the right time.
Yeah. So that's what I was going to follow up and ask about, is if I'm a parent and I'm listening and it's like, hey, at what point in the pregnancy do I really need to start processing? Because some people, it's like, oh man, I'm a planner. From the moment I get the diagnosis, I'm thinking about all this stuff. Other people, it's like, gosh, that feels like a lifetime away. Let's wait till we get closer to delivery to really decide the mode. And so is there a certain kind of milestone or point where it would be beneficial to at least start processing and getting on the same page as parents?
Yeah, so we really encourage families around 28 weeks gestation to start having conversations with one another of, hey, where are we leaning? How are we feeling based on how our child is doing and the abnormalities that they're presenting with? How do we feel about mode of delivery? And just processing that together, and then choosing to share that with your provider and just making sure that you're on the same page. The reason that we say 28 weeks is because at that point, the baby has a pretty good chance of survival outside of the womb. And so if, for example, what we encourage parents to consider is if you go into a appointment and you notice on sonogram, and you're around 28 weeks, you notice on sonogram that your baby is not doing very well, or they have their health has declined in utero, then what would you do? And so would you choose to just go home and wait? Would you choose to go to the hospital immediately and be induced? Or would you choose to have a C-section within the next 24 to 48 hours? And so there's no right or wrong decision in that. We've seen parents choose every route imaginable, but just to have that on your radar, to have talked about that with your spouse as well as with your provider, but prior to a scenario like that popping up is something that we have found was very beneficial for us. It ended up not being a need in our specific situation, but we've seen it be very beneficial for families to process that prior to finding themselves in that situation.
Yeah, so similar recommendations apply from other episodes we've done that you could go back and listen to. We did, I think, episode 2 maybe was just processing medical interventions at large and just how to tackle that, where we say really clearly, we believe in just a individualized, unbiased approach that there's really no black, white, right, wrong. And then there's an episode about, hey, what if I'm not on the same page as my spouse? How do we process if we're leaning in different directions and coming to the middle? And so check those out if you missed them. And for this topic, there's obviously, you can do a deep dive into any one of those 4 buckets of delivery method. And so for now, we'll keep it broad and know that at any given point on any given of these topics, feel free to reach out to us online at support@abelspeaks.org. And we would love to serve you in any way that we can. And so that wraps up this episode of the Abel Speaks podcast, unless you have something else to chime in.
No,
she doesn't.
That was amazing.
She gave me a look. It was not that look. No. It was the, we're done, baby.
That's right. It's wrap it up, okay?
We'll see you next time on the Abel Speaks podcast. Hey friends, thanks for listening in. We hope this content has been helpful. At Abel Speaks, we exist to support families who have chosen to carry a child with a life-limiting diagnosis, and we want you to know that the foundation of that support is rooted in relationships. And so, if you are a parent in this circumstance, then by all means continue listening in, but we'd really encourage you to reach out by sending an email to support@abelspeaks.org. Again, our heartfelt prayer is that this episode has served you in some way and that we might have the opportunity to serve you further in the future. The Abel Speaks podcast is produced by the team at Tarno & Company and mixed and edited by the team at Sound of a Rose.